Hello and welcome to Comedy in a Nutshell, the podcast where comedians look back on their career path and realise most of it was just saying yes. Each episode we talk about the journey into comedy, the gigs, the friendships, and the one good set that somehow convinced them to keep going. Because nothing says healthy decision making quite like building your self-worth around strangers in the dark. I'm the comedy nerd who's seen more than 2,000 different comedians perform live comedy, and you can find out more about my journey in comedy fandom on my website, thecomedynerd.com. Please also take a moment to like, subscribe, rate, review, and share the podcast. Thank you. My guest this episode is an Irish comedian and actor who's been making a mark on the UK circuit with sharp writing and a confident stage presence. With nominations for BBC New Comedy Award, Funny Women Stage Award, and the New Actor of the Year show, she's brought thoughtful, understated energy to everything she performs. It's comedian Kathryn Higgins. So do you remember growing up and comedy being an influence on you back then?
Yeah, I think so. I think kind of growing up in Ireland, comedy is a currency in this country. Do you know what I mean? It's very much you can have money and you can have comedy, but one will get you further than the other. And it's not money. And that comes and goes in this country in a big way. Comedy's forever. But it is. And I think my dad in particular, he's a big comedy fan. My dad grew up in England, so I was actually born in England. But my dad was raised in England, but to Irish parents. Right. But he had a big love of Only Fools and Horses was king in our house, box sets on box sets, and Billy Connolly was huge. Every road trip of his, I have watched many times. So definitely in a formal sense of TV comedy and stand-up comedy and stuff, but also just in a general and I hate the word, but in a general banter sort of way, it's the best characters and the people who are the best fun at, the family barbecues or communions and stuff. It was always the people cracking jokes, telling stories, that kind of a thing. So I think in sort of a lot of different ways, comedy was huge growing up in a big way.
So did any of those sort of influences, like your dad's love of the English humour or anything other outside influences, were they influential on you wanting to do comedy for yourself?
Yeah, to be honest, I think when I was younger, I didn't think I could be a comedian. It honestly never entered my head. I loved being on stage and doing acting and stuff. But I think because of that, in a way, Only Fools and Horses, Billy Connolly was a big one, even Lee Evans and stuff. And then in Ireland, I remember when I was younger, my mate had, she'd stolen off her ma the CD of Tommy Tiernan's first special. We had it in a Discman. The two of us would listen to it, and highly inappropriate, but we'd be listening to it, and then we'd recite it. And to this day, we'll still the other day I was doing references to that special. Well, I suppose in that kind of cliche way, none of them were women. Also girls like me, I didn't ever think I could be a stand-up or that I could do that. Right. But I knew I loved performing and stuff. So I think in a way it inferred my being an attention seeker. I was definitely oh, comedy is a great way to get attention. Yeah. And so even when I did the school plays and stuff like this, I was always a ham. I was always even when I was young, we did Alice in Wonderland. And I remember being I'm desperate to be the Mad Hatter. And I got cast as the Mad Hatter. And I remember my, more than one person said, "Oh, that's typecasting." And I remember going, "What's typecasting? I don't understand what typecasting is." But of the entire school, they were "Yeah, you and Kat Higgins, she's the Mad Hatter." So I think I was definitely someone who was looking for attention and saw that making people laugh was a good way to go about it. Yeah. I think now it definitely is in my comedy now, hugely Billy Connolly and Tommy Tiernan. I think storytelling comedy, my stand-up is very telling stories and stuff like this. I'm not as much a a one-liner type joke writer or whatever else. I'm very much a storytelling comic. And I think that definitely comes from absorbing so much of that style of comedy and stuff.
Yeah. But there is a great storytelling tradition in Ireland. I've talked about this on this podcast before. I mean, did you know going into doing comedy that was who you always were destined to be a storyteller? It was the natural form for you rather than a choice?
Yeah, I I think to be like, I'd love to tell you that I like really thought about who I was going to be in comedy when I went to an open mic, but like it really wasn't that well thought out. Uh, I, but I think I've just always like I've always been, so I would say like a yapper. Like I've always been telling stories. So I like it's not that like strange that it's that for me on stage. I think definitely like you try like when you first go to open mics and stuff, you try on a lot of different kind of styles and hats, and it's some of it's straight rip off of not the jokes, but like everything but the material.
Yeah.
Sometimes the material as well, but you know, I tried even like because there's a lot of female comics now, and like as I grew up, like as a child, obviously I was like sort of Billie Connolly, Tommy Tiernan. As I grew up, I like found lots of female voices that I like loved, and I think you try them on. Like I used to, you know, be more, I suppose blue is the word, but like more like prude or talk about sex and things like this, which like I'm not against and I won't not do and I whatever else. But it was more how I'd approach it. It was kind of to be like shocky. But I'm like, actually a shock kind of thing just doesn't suit me. Like I'm more, I remember a comedy director and I remember he turned around and he was like, your whole thing is that you're in the pub and you're like, come here, I've this fucking, wait till you hear this. He was like, that's your vibe. And he, because I remember I was also at the time, like trying to figure out what I should wear on stage. And I was like, maybe, like literally never wear a dress in my life ever. But I remember once doing a gig in a dress because I thought, oh, maybe that's, you know, like you're really trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
Like, oh, when Pierre Novelli figured out he needed to wear a blazer on stage, that like was the thing that set him going. So I was like, oh, maybe I need to like wear a costume like Pierre does. For some reason, I thought that was like a dress. And then it was like, what are you doing? Like, that's not your thing at all. Your thing is like, Pierre's giving a lecture and you're at the back of the pub being like, wait till I tell you about your man. So like, think hearing sometimes feedback like that is kind of useful as well. Because you like, you just, I mean, maybe there's a lot slicker people who are like, I always wanted to be this kind of comic. But for me, it was always, I'm still, I think in a way, like it's ever evolving and changing the style of comedy. But I think finding like your voice, not to sound like a wanker, but like, you know what I mean? Like, the way you're like talking about things it's a mix between like what's sort of authentic and stuff, but then also what is performative, but how you like get that and then your material. It's kind of a trifecta of things. I think I think in general, like I do think I like knew I was going to be a storytelling comic in a way. But yeah, was that your question? Sorry, I feel like I'm really rambling.
Well, you said there about like, maybe I need to wear a dress, or Pierre Novelli wearing the blazer.
Yeah.
Is that part of the affecting of a character, a version of you? And is that a protection afforded to you because it's the stage character is a different person than yourself? Yeah,
I definitely, like, I think in a way, because I think for some people, maybe there is a good amount of between who they are on stage and who they are. And for me, it's like, it's kind of close. And it's also the thing of like, I do a lot of MCing as well. And MCing slightly different to when you're doing your set on stage as well, because it's a different job. Those are two very different jobs. Yeah. So it can change, you know, exactly where you are. And it's not necessarily, it hasn't really become what I wear. Like generally I'm wearing what I wear on stage, off stage as well. But it's more like I would never wear really. I'll say this now and then something will happen. But I'd never really wear a dress on stage. I just wouldn't. I have to wear trousers. There's something in like, I'm quite a forceful comic when I'm on stage as well. Like I'm, as much as I say I'm down the back of the pub, I'm just shouting. I'm getting everyone in the pub to watch me down the back of the pub. You've seen me, you know.
Yeah.
There's something about like that I have to be in like, generally I'm in like high-waisted jeans, which you're not a woman, Mac. I don't know how much you'll know, but like there's a certain like power you can have when you know that your arse crack is nowhere near on show. Just I'm like, right, I'm well, but you're just like buckled in well. It's either that or kind of boiler suits or jumpsuits and stuff. But I think for me, it's like people talk about like the power stance thing. Do you know about this? The power pose or whatever else.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, like, so long as I'm wearing stuff, I also like won't wear. I've had like wardrobe disasters on stage. If you want to know, I literally once was emceeing and John Kearns was coming on, and he's like a real hero because I also hugely love comics who are nothing like me on stage. Like most of the comics I love are like alternative comics or character comics and stuff. Because it's so, I'm like, how the hell are they doing that?
Yeah.
Like like some comics who are similar style to me, I'm kind of watching it from like a analytical point, but I think like comedy that's very different to mine, I like get to go back to being an audience member of. But anyway, John Kearns was coming on, huge fan of his. And I was emceeing, and it was in like a brewery, like a bar in broad fucking daylight as well. It was like one of these bars that was all like glass, so it wasn't like dark or anything. And I was wearing my aforementioned high-waisted jeans. And I generally try to buy them because, I try to be a good person. I try to buy them off like eBay and vintage, secondhand. And I had these secondhand Levi's, and I hadn't really worn them before, and they were a bit tight. But, it is what it is. And as I was on stage, so high-waisted, obviously, like the button of the jeans is like sitting above my belly button. So the zip is like going entirely over your sort of butt, basically. I went to the loo, tried to zip it up. It got kind of stuck. And I was like, oh my God, managed to like force it up. But I was like, oh, something's not right. And it wasn't fully closed. I couldn't get it all the way up because it was like an old zip, white, like just an old crap zip from vintage jeans. So fair warning to anyone buying vintage jeans, the zips will break. And as I was on stage, because it was only halfway up, it just like fully unzipped itself. Then thankfully it was like an interval. And I tried to like fix it in the interval. I couldn't. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to untuck my shirt and try and like get my shirt to cover it over.
Yeah.
As I was doing it, I kept pulling down my shirt like this. And annoyingly, it was a buttoned shirt. I kept pulling it down to try and cover it. And I pulled it, and the button that was covering like over my chest just popped off because I kept pulling it. So then I was still on stage with both my boobs and my gut out. I had to bring John Kearns on stage. So, yeah, wardrobe can help you feel strong, but it also can really take you down at the knees. Both of those things were secondhand. And look, secondhand's great for the environment, but make sure you check the seams, check the buttons, because it really did me dirty that day. John, absolute trooper, acted, was very kind and nice about it. Although I remember he said to me, he was like, you're very memorable. And I was like, well, we both know why, John, don't we? I'd love to say it was about my comedy, but my boobs are out. But yeah.
So you said there about watching comedy and how you watch people who are different to yourself. Are you able to still enjoy comedy as an audience member if it is different to you? How much does that sort of stay in entertainment for you? How much can you enjoy comedy broadly?
I actually make a conscious effort to try and be to try and be an audience member, to like not try and like get too immersed in it. From like, it is one of these, like, it's hard because there's sometimes like you are someone, I like my housemate who is a hair and makeup artist, and she works on TV and set, and I'll be sitting watching the TV show with her, and she'll be like, his hair's different, the continuity's gone bad. And it'll be that someone's hair is slightly different one way than the other. But I realize like she watches TV shows looking at it like she does on set when she's watching hair and makeup to make sure it's correct. And it's the same for me in comedy. You're looking at the things you can see that is visible, but you're not supposed to be able to see the workings of it.
Yeah.
But in some ways it's good, because in some ways as a comic, I'm like, you learn a lot. Like there's times when I'm in the audience trying to like learn or get inspired in a way, like sort of be like, wow, the way he did that. So he set it up here, did that. That's interesting the way that happened. Would that work? And you're sort of sometimes thinking about your own material and, that was a kind of hidden drop. And that the way that callback worked was, this way. And instead of it really being a rule of 3, it was kind of 4 and then a double back around, things like that, which can be useful and good. But I generally I remember reading Amy Poehler's book. In Amy Poehler's book, there's a chapter, and this is before I started doing stand-up, but it always stuck out in my head because before I did stand-up, I did improv. And there's a chapter of Amy Poehler's book that Seth Meyers writes because she gets really tired writing a book, which I can only imagine I'd relate to. I actually can't think of anything worse than having to write a whole book. Like, Christ, that's a lot of work. Barely wrote a show. Do you know what I mean? But Seth writes in it, and he talks about his audition for SNL and how Amy was in the audience. You can't see the audience, and it's known as, like, well, in comedy circles anyways, it's known as a very intimidating audition, the American, at least, SNL cast audition. And that, like, no one laughs. You just perform to, like, dead space and you can see Lauren, but that's it. He said that Amy was there and she laughed. And he was like, I've never been so grateful. And he's like, I realized, like, I thought that was something she just did to help her, but he was like, she's a laugher. Like, she's always willing to be an audience member. And he was like, it's so useful in a writing room. It's so useful when you're rehearsing. It's such a generous thing to do. And I always remember that and try and, like, maintain that. And I've seen him say it to Amy, and she's like, but it was funny. And I'm like, oh, like, that's such a precious thing to do as well, to just keep comedy funny for you. Like, if, like, and you can sometimes get really into the weeds of looking at the mechanics and what's going on. But I do think some of the ways I find the easiest to, like, keep it funny is stuff that's, like, completely, you know, totally far away. Like, I love people like Lorna Rose Treen, and even, like, I saw Main Character Energy a while ago, and that was, like, you know, brilliant character stuff. I love great sketch as well, like siblings, stuff that's just, you know, like, completely different to me telling my stories about, you know, me growing up in my family and, you know, my dad popping open on stage and stuff.
Yeah.
And I love that kind of stuff as well, because I'm not too worried about the mechanic, because I'm not trying to write a sketch. So I get to rest that part of my brain, and I just get to try and enjoy it.
Well, when you talked about doing acting and starting comedy, and once you got onto the stage and you were performing comedy in the early stages, how much did it resemble what you anticipated? How surprising was the reality of it for you?
The reality of, like, open mic comedy. It was grimmer than I thought. Well, no, it was. So I had, for a while, like I say, I did improv, and I loved comedy, and I went to go see loads. I was at Angel loads. I go see shows at Angel and Bill Murray, and so theater and stuff. And I was like, oh, it's so cool, but, like, I couldn't, you know, like, I couldn't do that. And I remember there was a guy on my improv team, Nick Adamson, who's American, and he had moved over, and he was really great. And he was like, a good few people in improv. Generally in improv, so I was at the FA, the Free Association in London, which is a really great improv school. I highly recommend. But most people who do improv are either comedians or actors, generally. Like, there's obviously a difference, but generally people are coming to it from that thing. And everyone thought I was a comedian. People just assumed I did stand-up. And I was like, no, I don't do stand-up. And then someone mentioned to me, they were like, have you ever tried it or whatever else? And I was like, oh, I don't know. Nick, being, like, a blunt American, was like, what the fuck are you waiting for? Someone to beg you to do it? And I was like, oh, well, maybe, yeah, actually. Maybe if someone could say, please, Kathryn, Comedy World can't live without you. And then he was like, I was like, well, no, it's intimidating. Like, you know, I've been to, you know, I'm not that good. And he was like, whoa. He was like, have you been to an open mic night? And I was like, no. And he was like, cool, I need a bringer in 2 weeks, which, for anyone who doesn't know, a lot of open mic nights require you to bring an audience member, because there is no audience.
Yeah.
Okay, there is just the 20 of the comics who are on the bill. That's right, I said 20. 20 of the comics on the bill, and they're plus ones that they, like, have to bring. So he was like, bringer me. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I went and I sat, and quite quickly I was like, oh, maybe I could do that. I think I could do that. I think I could probably manage that. I've been going to see, you know, college shows, and it's so funny because even now, like, mates and family and stuff are like, how do you do that? And I'm like, well, that's like going to see a Premier League. Not that I'm a Premier League performer. I mean, some days, you know, with the right setting. But it's like, I always say, it's like watching a professional rugby match or a football match, and then you go to the local five-a-side. You're like, oh, like, you're saying you couldn't play the sport because you couldn't play it at that level. You're not being asked to play it at that level. Everyone starts at the five-a-side down the park, and we'll see how you go. So, yeah, but to be honest, I obviously, you know, open mics it's rough, but it's also great in a way because you will see it sort of is very liberating. And I even still like going back to do, the 10 spots or whatever on open mic nights. Because one, sometimes you like see new comics and you're like, fuck, they're great. Like there's nothing better than at an open mic night seeing someone who's really good.
Yeah.
And you're like, shit, they're gonna, and I remember seeing certain people, early doors, and I was like, fuck, and it's fun to be like, I called it. I said they were really good.
Yeah.
So it's great in a way. And it's also like, I'll often say it, like big pro comics will never do a room ever. Like, Jimmy Carr, Catherine Ryan, Ashley B, they'll never have as hard a gig as the person doing that open mic spot has.
Yeah.
Because it's a room full of a load of other comics who are just focused on their set and their mates who brought them. But if you get that room, then and a couple of drunk tourists, if you manage to get that room, you've worked. Like that's a good, and only in 5 minutes. Like you only get 5 minutes to do it, to set it up, to get it and bring it home.
Yeah.
It does make you, it's one of them where it's like hard, but it also like makes you a good comic.
Yeah.
There's a love-hate relationship with the open mic scene. I think especially as a woman in a way. When you tell your mates, you're like, because I didn't tell any of my friends when I first started doing stand-up that I was doing stand-up.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm kind of going to weird bars and basements in like Peckham and Clapham and Hackney. I'm literally going all over London on a Tuesday night. And I'm like, I'm going to get killed. And everyone's going to be like, fuck is she doing? So there's an element of that where you're like, is this safe? But that's not anything to do with the open mic scene, more just, the concept of being a woman going to pubs alone. Yeah. But thankfully with that, I found a really good group of female comics and women and lads as well, who you also find a little crew and, you see each other at all the different open mics and you bring each other. And it is also a nice way to like find a little bunch of, freaks who are all trying to do the same weird thing you're trying to do.
Yeah. Well, you talked about starting out in improv. How important is improv still to you? I mean, like you're emceeing, so there's a lot bears into that.
Yeah.
But what about your carefully prepared material? How easy is it to go off on tangents and live in the room?
It's a real fine balance. I appreciate you using the word carefully prepared. I'm not sure. Not sure many people. No, it is, and especially the show I'm developing now. Like, but it's trying to have both, I think, because I love improv and I also find like I love chatting to audience members. I love being in the room. I also love being quick. I think it's the Irish thing of like being able to go straight back, because my show is it's about me, it's about growing up, it's about family and stuff like this. There's generally, you can always find something that then I can always tag back to, when I'm talking about my dad or a brother or, me growing up Catholic, whatever else, I can generally, like, if I've done a bit of crowd work, I can generally, I'll be like, what I'm talking about, Josh, even just a small callback to an interaction you had or whatever else. And I like that. Because also for me, it keeps it interesting, because the thing with improv and the thing that I like struggle with sometimes in stand-up is like not getting bored, like, doing the same material night after night after night, trying to perfect it, but also not getting sick of it.
Yes.
And like having it feel different and the pacing feel, if having it and like it living live in a way. And so I find trying to integrate the two is the best way for me to try and do it. But it's interesting because in order to try and like get the show to where I wanted to be, which is like still happening, I've had to like have, previews and things where I've just been like there's no crowd work. You've just got to, if I'm sharing a preview with someone, it's 30 minutes. I need to get through the material, try that new writing bit.
Yeah.
And it feels like one hand behind my back in a way. Not that it's the strongest thing that I do, but telling myself, you can't do that. You have to just do the material, get through it. You need to see how the timing works and blah, 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 blah. You need to do this new wording, whatever it is. Yeah. It feels very mechanical. Whereas my favorite thing on stage is when it like feels like planned and prepped and like I know what's coming and stuff, but I also, there's a little element that I don't know. And I also think it makes the crowd feel like, wow, she's she's written this all just for us. This is all just off the dome. And I'm like, yeah, off the dome of months, years of hard work.
Well, there's no greater challenge than to make improvisation look prepared.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Well, yeah. Vice versa. I think I find vice versa. Yeah. I think being like a storytelling comic, like even if I end up on a tangent in Crowbar, I can generally segue myself back into the material somehow. Like, like I'm pretty good at being like, so anyway, funny you mentioned this. Da-da-da. Anyways, and get us back there.
Yeah.
Or just being a yapper, someone who's constantly rambling. I can often be like, oh wow, I drove 3 miles down the wrong road. Let me get back onto the thing, but I'll make it seem like this was the scenic route and I planned to take this drive the whole time.
Yeah. You're going to the Edinburgh Fringe, of course.
Yes, I am. For my sins.
This is your debut hour.
It is. This is the debut.
First of all, what is your Fringe experience been like as a whole?
Oh, that's interesting. I've been to the Fringe quite a bit, and I've done split bills, but I've actually done more time at the Fringe working at it. So I started doing stand-up. The whole dare you to do an open mic type thing happened the beginning of 2019.
Yeah.
And then I loved it and got into it. And then I basically got made redundant from my job in July of 2019. Got a new one, but it didn't start till September. And so in, I think maybe July or June, quite short notice, I was like, oh, I have a month free in August. And everybody, I didn't really know what the Fringe was before I started doing stand-up. Like, I grew up in Ireland. I did acting and stuff. I was like vaguely aware of it, but I kind of, I did not know the beast that it was. And I think people who are comedy fans who grow up in the UK don't realize how like people outside of it don't, like, not every university drama club goes to the Fringe, like mine didn't, you know what I mean? So everyone would talk about it like it was this like known thing or whatever. And people, I remember I was like, oh, it'd be cool to go up, but like I can't quite afford it because I'm not working, whatever. And my pal Alice India was like, oh, so-and-so, objectively funny, you're looking for flyers, you could go up and work as a flyer. To the point where I was like, what's a flyer? What do you mean? Like, I literally didn't know that people were stood out there on the streets forcing flyers into your hands. But I got the job, and then so I was like, great, I'll go up for the month. And I found like some cobbled together accommodation, like a week on someone's couch and a week in a room that was free, this kind of thing. Within a week or two, I was running the street team that I had originally just been part of. I just kind of took over the street team. It was just like, this isn't being done right, I'm going to fix it. And by the end of the run, I was producing one of the shows that we were working on. So yeah, I sort of threw myself in, but I loved it. Like the Fringe is kind of my vibe, like just the sheer madness of it, but the sort of immediacy of it as well, where it's just like day. Yeah. I'm not a great planner. I'm trying. But I'm good in the moment. I'm good under stress, and I'm good like at action. And the Fringe is all stress and it's all action and it's all in the moment. Yeah. Well, I loved it from the back of that. But then obviously 2020 happened. Fringe didn't happen. Yeah. And 2021 was still a very like slow year. And then 2022, I went back and I was working as a full producer with the production company Objectively Funny that I was with before, and running the street team and doing a split bill. That I would say was too much. Any one of those jobs is stressful, but doing all three of them together was mental. And I was in like a free Fringe venue my show was in a free Fringe venue that wasn't a venue's generous. It was, some people remember it was the Omni Centre, which like, okay, so you're familiar with the Omni Centre.
Yep.
Where it was basically like the shell, I think an Outback Steakhouse, like the retail shell of it, like the concrete glass. And in it, they just set up scaffolding with like MDF, like one ply of like MDF. Three of us in the one restaurant space. So like no ceilings, no soundproofing, no nothing. We were all just shouting over each other in this like echoey cement shell of a restaurant in the back of a cinema down Leith Walk. Like it was bad. But I still love doing it.
Yeah.
like, and but people were like, this is mental, this is awful. But because I just started, I kind of didn't know what the Fringe was enough in 2019 to be able to like do it. Or I did a couple of spots when I was up there, but like wasn't able to do a split bill or anything. And then COVID had delayed it for 2 years. I was just so buzzing to be doing I was like, I get half an hour on stage every day. Like, I love this. Like, I'm getting half an hour on stage every day.
Yeah.
And different audiences. Even actually during that run, I was doing a run split bill with a guy named Harry Monaghan who got COVID halfway through. So he couldn't do it for a week. But thankfully, Andrew Nolan, who was another Irish comic, he was in the room. He was in the MDMF scaffolding sort of circle next to mine at the same time. And he was supposed to be doing a sort of solo 45 minutes, like a work in progress. And I remember seeing him and I was like, damn it, we overlap. And Andrew's like a charismatic Irish guy. Being Irish have been like my flyering technique, and I've been generally pulling the bigger crowds. And Andrew was like, I don't have anywhere near 45, I only have half an hour. And then I was like, wait a second, do you want to join forces and just do a split? And then we like, our flyering powers, we packed out the rooms every day. So we actually made money, which was great. And we didn't have as much nosebleed. So that worked out really well. But yeah, it was really rough. And off the back of it, I think that was the beginning of me starting to have a vocal issue where, like, after that Fringe, I got quite sick because I was working too much, whatever else. And basically then I got diagnosed. It took a long time, but I got diagnosed with a vocal cord cyst. That meant I couldn't really do the Fringe in 2013. Well, yeah, no, I'm trying to think now when I got diagnosed, but 2003, I was up there. Yeah, I was up for 2 weeks and I shared a bit of a split bill as well. But then after that, I got diagnosed with a vocal cord cyst, and then so couldn't go in 2014, and in 2024, not 14. Like I say, I'm really bad at planning.
Well, I mean, if you could do things in the past after you think of it, then great.
This is it.
That's a rare talent.
Retrospectively. No, in 2024, I went up for a week with work. I was working for a different company at this point. I was doing the marketing for their Fringe shows. I was up there for a week, and I actually opened Janine Hironi, who was the wife of Andrew Nolan. Yep. You can sense a theme here. They're my pals. She was, again, doing a work in progress. And it's so funny. We're like, she's someone who actually is like real inspiration of mine, but we've very different comedic styles, because Janine hates improv, hates riffing. Like, she writes and plans her jokes quite meticulously. And so she was like, I don't even know if I've half an hour. Will you come open for me at this work in progress at Monkey Barrel? And I was like, sure, yeah, grand. Like, why not? And then she was like, do you have anything written? I was like, nah, I'll just chat to people at 11 a.m. at Monkey Barrel. And it worked really well. But that was all that year. And then last year I had my surgery on my voice, which I had to have vocal cord surgery, and I couldn't speak for a month afterwards, and then had to do speech therapy for 6 months. And that sort of ran right up to over the Fringe. So I'm finally now debuting. So I'm like buzzing to get back to the Fringe and be able to like properly do a run. And also this show, I've like been writing the show for the past 2 years, really. Yeah. Some of the material, some of the like first kind of topics I ever talked about, like elements, like not the jokes, they've gotten better, I've rewritten them entirely, but topics, we shall say. Yeah. Some of the topics I first talked about at those open mics, you know. Yeah. So I'm really buzzing to be back and getting to finally debut, because the voice thing sort of curtailed me for quite a while.
But does that word debut, that introduction to the industry, you're basically saying, this is me, come and see my show, my one shot at being a newcomer. Does that hang heavy over you? Is that daunting?
Yes and no. I think, again, because I'm not someone who I think because I didn't really know what the Fringe was before 2019. And I think it's funny because it is really different, I think, post-COVID. So even as someone who ran street teams, you used to be able to get the open micers to come up and flyer. Like the people like me that were doing open mics, they come up and flyer for a more successful comic or something, get to know them. It was a networking thing. Whereas now everyone works remote up at the Fringe. So people aren't looking, people are generally still doing their day jobs up at the Fringe, whereas it used to be that everyone didn't. So it really has, even in just like a logistical sense rather than like a cultural, it really has changed post COVID. But I also don't really romanticize it. And in the same way, like, I don't think I'm overly romantic about the awards and stuff because I didn't really know what they were. I have my good friend Ruby Carr. Ruby Carr grew up going to the Fringe. She went every year. Ruby like knew what the Perrier Award was, like knew all of that. I don't think she's like awards obsessed, but as in like it has this like thing and weight and understanding. My family haven't a clue. Do you know, like so in a way, yes, for me, it does in the sense that just I know kind of industry wise, if you're a debuter, you get a bit more attention. Like people want to know who the debuters are. There's lists made of debuters, obviously, because there's the award. But I think often like it's that tricky second album thing. Like you kind of get one shot at being the debuter. And if while that attention is on you, you capitalize on it, you can have an easier second year. Some people, their like second show is better than their first, but they kind of like didn't, do that well when they had the spotlight of debut on them. So I think from like a kind of marketing and like industry point, I'm like, yeah, I feel a bit of pressure. I feel like there'll be people who pay attention to me, not because of anything got to do with me, just because debut's tagged on. So you want to try and like capitalize on that. But I don't think I'm overly, I think as well, having had to wait because of my voice issues to like do the Fringe, like I'm just keen to do it. Like I'm not, there's people who, it's really funny. I like was saying that I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing the Fringe this year. And because some people have known me a while, because I, did start in 2019. People are like, oh wow, oh fair play, you're very smart. You held back on doing you held back. And I was like, no, this wasn't like some strategic plan. It was a global pandemic, and then I got a vocal cord cyst, and I couldn't talk. Like it really wasn't some like keep the bullet in the chamber type thing. And so yeah, that kind of thing. Like not particularly. I'm not overly romantic about it, but I'm aware of like, from a business sense, almost like what it does to be a debuter.
Yeah. And you've got, you won a total hot shot. So that's a big vote of confidence.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, like definitely. It's one of them where like, I've always done all right in any competitions, but like never won anything. So I've been at competitions where I've been like not me even. I've been like, oh, they were great and this was great. And then someone else got it. And I'm like, oh, they were good. I thought they were better. I really kind of hate the idea of judging comedy in a way, because I'm like, it's, like just like that. I'll be sat in the room and, I'll be there for my mate and I'll be like, they did great, but so-and-so was better. And then someone else wins. So it's really one of those things. I mean, I feel like you've probably had this discussion with people where like everyone can think it was a great show, but it can really speak to some people and not to others, or certain styles of comedy. You see, I'm sometimes most impressed by shows that get like 2-star ratings and 5-star ratings, because I'm like, well, they're doing something, and you either love or hate it. But the Total Hot Shot is really great, and I'm really grateful. It was a bursary, which I think I was like, winning an award or something's great, but I'm like, the Fringe is expensive, so getting some money is better.
Trophy nice, cash money better.
Yeah. I'm like, the shelf didn't need anything on it, but the bank account did. So thank you very much to Total Hot Shots, which was a birthday that covered the registration fees. And there'll be some free advertising as well, which I'm really grateful for.
Yeah.
And there needs to be more of for Fringe people, because it's really expensive.
Yeah.
As we know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am really grateful for it, and it's great. But like it's again, like it's hard with the Fringe as well, because I know when you're up there, like I know it feels like a competition sometimes. It feels like, there's a certain amount of glory and you've got to try and get your share of it and stuff. But just that's not why I think anybody goes to see comedy. I don't think any comedy lovers are like, there's a finite amount of appreciation I can show for this art. And there's only so many people, the industry can make it feel like that. And like, reviews and who gets reviews and awards and who gets awards can feel like that. But actually, like, that's not what it is at all. So I try and not get too like head into that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Find your audience. I want people to come. I want people to enjoy the show. I want people to laugh.
Yeah.
And I want the show to have the impact I want the show to have.
Mm.
Obviously, industry wise, I'd love a certain amount of whatever, but high tide raises all ships, in my opinion. So fingers crossed, comedy in general does well. I'm part of that.
I mean, that's a very magnanimous attitude, but for the person who's commanding the attention of the pub or taking over the organizing of the flowers, do you not have an innate competitive side that demands that?
Oh, wildly.
Those accolades?
Sorry, if I've made it seem like I'm not competitive, then I'm absolutely misrepresenting myself. I have 3 brothers. I am disgustingly competitive, but I just kind of amn't with comedy in a way. Like, I think probably because I worked on the business side of comedy more in the fringe at least than I had as an act. I just kind of know that I'm like, it's not even about who's the best sometimes. It's about, like who gets booked on a bill is often about like, oh, well, I was, the promoter will be trying to get an agent to give them the big act. The agent will be like, oh, take the small act. And then you're like, oh, why did they get that spot and I didn't? As an act, you're looking at things from the outside going like, oh, it's just because they're better than me. And sometimes I'm like, nah, they just were in the right space at the right time. Or, the bill had too many men on it. They needed a woman. There was too many white people and they needed a person. Like, there's a load of factors that go into like programming a bill, programming a festival, lots of stuff. So I kind of think, having seen slightly how the sausage makes, I've worked for a promoter, I've worked for comedy club venues, I've worked for producers at the Fringe. So I'm aware, even, there was, who people work with and stuff like this. It's not just political, it's just environmental. Like in the same way it is with, my mates who work in a corporate environment. It's not always that the person who is the best at the job gets the promotion. Yeah. That's just not the case. So I think I am competitive, but I think my competitiveness, like you say, commandeering the pub, mine is like weirdly sometimes like with my audience, where I'm like I love nothing more than a man with his arms crossed in the front row. Like, because I'll look at him and be like, you're going to fucking laugh. I'm going to make you fucking laugh. And that's my competitiveness. Like, is like, also like if I'm doing a gig and someone smashes it, I'm like, right, I've got to do better than that. And it's not me doing better than them in the industry. It's me like trying to carry that ball, raise that bar type thing. Yeah. If I see someone like with some great jokes, I'll be like, fuck, I need to write some good joke, But it's not, I think industry wise trying to be, there's the art of it. And I think with the art of comedy, I try and like be good and try and get very competitive in that way, but not really with, don't get me wrong, there's some people I can't fucking stand. And I'm like rooting on their downfall. Like I'm not some angel. I just think I'm sort of like, I've seen how the sausage is made enough to know you're actually just, that's a fallacy, that it's about it, that it's a sheer like who's the best and that's who gets things. It's about a bunch of other stuff. So just focus on what you can control, which is you on stage and the man with the cross arms. So I'm going to make fucking laugh.
Well, from competition to collaboration, then you talked about joining forces with Andrew Nolan and Ruby Carr. You've mentioned who you've done a great podcast with. How important is collaboration in that same sense to you then? And also, how does that reflect on, as you say, we're going up to Edinburgh for a month to do a show that is all about you. So you don't have the person beside you, a person to fall back on if things aren't going wonderfully, which I'm sure they will. But nonetheless, you are going out there alone. So how important is collaboration to you in that sense?
Yeah, collaboration is huge. I'm a real team sports player. And that's why I loved improv as well, was because like people often look at improv and they're like, oh, you go out there and you don't know what you're saying. Like, how are you not so stressed? And I'm like, my job when I'm out there is to listen to the other person on stage and make sure I can help them. And if I'm focusing on helping them, then I'll be good because I'm supporting whatever is happening. And it's the same in like team sports. Like you want to be good and you need to have a good performance, but like if you're focused on you, you're not helping the team. So it is different with stand up in a way where I'm like, just me, myself and I, like gotta do it. But I find generally then like in every element that I can, I do try and collaborate with people. And also like, in all sorts of ways. So like even you mentioned like Edinburgh and you mentioned Ruby, who is my comedy wife. And so like we're sharing an apartment together. And also, weirdly, we're also sharing a venue. We're on directly after each other, which was not planned. So honestly, I'm going to be sick to death of Ruby Carr by the end of Edinburgh. If anyone's like, what happened to Ruby? Kathryn killed her. She just murdered her because they were spending too much time together. But it is useful where, again, me and Ruby have quite different sort of comedy styles in a way, but she's really great to try and run jokes by. Or what we kind of do more for each other often is like, I'll message her sometimes and be like, I'm supposed to be doing this thing. I need you to make me do it. Like, I'm not great at admin. I'm not great at organization. If there's like a task or something, a Q&A, a questionnaire, an admin, booking our printing, flyers, artwork, whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of admin to do with the Fringe. And doing that all on your own, like a lot of people have producers and stuff like this. I financially couldn't afford to work with the producer, and having been a producer in the past, that's one thing that I could do myself. So when you're looking at all the things, unless you have, going to say upwards of 10 grand plus in the bank account, like something's got to give with the Fringe between, venue, PR, producers, print, out of hand, design, directors. There's so many things that can cost a lot of money, and they should, because all those people are doing work.
Yeah.
But it's a finite budget. But I think that's where I found, and even with the Fringe, I've already started to find people. I'm like, who's up there? Who's up there for the full month? Who's going to be there? Great. Let's we'll make a group together and support each other and stuff. Because it is really difficult. And the Fringe is really hard. And comedy in general can be really hard. If you just have a bad run of gigs, or you get a couple of no's in a row, which always seems to happen.
Yeah.
You can get really in your own head. But having a sort of gang of people around you that you collaborate with, there's a lot to comedy that isn't the person on stage. That isn't just the bit on stage. There's a huge amount to it. So I think collaborating in that sort of way and supporting each other in a big way. And I'm lucky that I have the likes of Ruby, Cindy, I mentioned Rob Copland's a good pal, loads of people who Andrew Nolan, Janine Haroni, who I can go to with ideas. I ask them questions either about industry stuff, literal admin, how much would you charge for this? Or oh, so-and-so, admin, almost comedy questions. And then also I can't get this joke right. Can you help me workshop this bit?
Yeah.
Or whatever else. And I find comedy has a great community. Most people who aren't arseholes, which of course there are some, but most people generally want that because they're also dealing with it themselves as well. I honestly love working on other people's material more than mine. Mine, I'm gotta work out that. It feels like homework. For someone else's, I'm oh, I'll do that. I'll punch up this bit. So it's nice to give each other a break.
Yeah. So talking about that, working on other people's material and all the other aspects of comedy, emceeing, writing your own show, performing live on stage, helping other people. Where are you happiest? Where's your comfort zone?
Definitely on stage. I just love it. I love being in a room with people and the sort of energy that you get when I don't even know what's going to happen, because and even when I'm doing my most polished material, every room's different and the audiences are different, but also the risk. I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie, I just am. And there's when people mates and families are sort of I don't know how you do it. And I'm I don't know how you sit in front of a laptop all day long. I don't think you realize how fun it is. It's so fun. And even I was saying this to my mate that I was because she was have you ever had a really bad gig? I was of course. I've died on my arse. She was is it not horrendous? I'm I don't find it as bad. Possibly because you do get a rush of adrenaline, fear adrenaline, panic, but adrenaline, than a fine gig. Then nah, you got some laughs, because then you're oh shit, it's not that this isn't working. They get it, but it's just not it's not moving anyone. It's not impacting anyone. It's not there's no feeling in this. And that can be me. That could be I'm wrecked, I'm tired, or I'm distracted, I have something else going on, whatever else. But the rush of being on stage is just, yeah. And I love emceeing. I do really enjoy it, but I think like getting to be like, because emceeing is a job. So whenever you're on stage emceeing, even when I'm, riffing and doing crowd work and chatting to the room, which is great, I'm still in my head, like thinking about the timing, thinking about this. Okay, I'm doing a lot of crowd work. I need to make sure I do some material to help set up the next act.
Mm.
There's mechanics to emceeing, but when I get 20 minutes, Kat's 20 minutes, and it's just me in that audience for 20 minutes, I love it. Like that's the best.
What do you think then that you can come up with one individual worst moment and one individual best moment that you've experienced so far through being in comedy?
Yeah. Oh, individual worst moment, individual best moment. I honestly haven't. This sounds so dramatic. I should really speak to my PR about whether I should say this or not. But fuck it, I'll say it. One of the worst moments I had in comedy was doing the BBC New Comedy Awards because I was really, really green. And I was lucky enough that it was in 2021. So, like I say, I started stand up 2019. I've been going about 8 months when COVID happened, or 9, 10 months or so. Less than a year when COVID happened. And then there was no gigs, for the rest of 2020, 2021. In that summer, it just started to open up. And I literally did like 3 gigs or something. And one of them was an abortion rights fundraiser that I like helped involve. I used to work for an abortion rights campaign. I'm very involved. And it was in a gay club in like South London. And so I was like, right, we've got the girls, the gays, and the theys in. I know this crowd. So I did material basically about being really horny over lockdown. And it worked great. Like, it was great. But I was like on the bit, I was like one of the only stand-ups. There was like a drag artist who was like pulling ping pongs out of her vagina and stuff. So the room was a raucous room. But I had the video of it and I was like, this looks great. And so I sent it into the BBC Comedy Awards, thinking at the time, if people remember, before COVID, they had only been on the radio for years and years and years. And I asked a load of comics who were mates of mine. I was like, oh, what do I do? I have this like clip. I have a clip of the gig that was like somewhere, the Comedy Cabinet, or like somewhere that was like fine. But then I had this 10-minute clip at this fundraiser that was like, great. There was crowd work and it was, big laughs and whatever. And they were like, oh no, send in the one that's you performing. They won't let you do any of that material on radio. Like you'll have to cut loads of it for radio. But like just send in the one where you're the funniest, like the one that makes you look the best. So I was like, great, no worries, stunning. So I sent in that clip and then they turned around, they were like, it's going to be on the TV and you're round to the next heats. And I was like, amazing. And because, like I said earlier, I was born in England, I was born in Leicester. When you fill in a BBC form, they're like, where are you born? Where are you from? So I ticked and said, I'm Irish. And I also like in the video was obviously using my voice talking about being Irish. But when I ticked the box saying I was from Leicester, they obviously took that. And so they put me in the Midlands heat. And I was like, this is grand. And it was happening in Bristol, the like next round of heats.
Mm-hmm.
But they also said you have to do the same material. You have to do the exact same material. And I was like, oh, okay. But I was like, do you know what? Bristol will be fine with these like sex jokes about horniness and, this will be fine. So I did it in Bristol, did well and got through to the next round. And I remember at the heat though in Bristol, even most of the people in the heat all had agents and all were like a lot more. I was the Sally A.B. There was a lot of like very experienced comics, Lily Phillips, Sally A.B., like people who've been going years more than me, who I looked up to. I was like, oh my God. And then I got through to the next round and they were like, we're going to put you in Belfast, or no, in Northern Ireland. And I was like, okay, because you figured out I was Irish. But also I'm not from Northern Ireland, but they were like, it's going to be in Portrush. Because I lived in Northern Ireland for 4 years, I went to university there, I know that Portrush is quite a conservative Christian town. And they were like, oh, it's going to be at the town hall in Portrush. And because it does matter and English people don't get that it matters, but also quite a Protestant town, which is fine. I was like, they weren't going to stone me as a Catholic, but there's just another barrier going on here. And like, cool, I need to change some of this material. And looking back at it now, basically everybody else changed their material and they did what everybody else does, which is they didn't tell the BBC. They just changed a couple jokes. Forgiveness, not permission.
Yeah.
I, being so green, they said, if you don't do it, you won't be you won't be able to perform. and you'd send in a script. So I was like, oh, they're obviously going to read it and cross-reference it with my last. No, they're fucking not. I know that now. But I literally I asked to get on a call, and I got on a call with this director, and I was like, listen, like, I know this town, like these jokes, like it's going to be really hard. And they were like, I won't name names, but that production company, they were like, it's a university town. I was like, the university, I went to the university. It's miles away. They were like, it's going to be young people. I was like, no, it's not. It's going to be the LDL ones who run the town hall. They were like, yeah, it's sold out in the town hall as soon as we put up the free tickets. I was like, yeah, because nothing happens in Portrush. So anyways, I did it. I went and did the gig, and they also, I don't mind shaming them, they didn't pay to fly us over. All of a sudden I was now having to go to Portrush, which is in the middle of nowhere, quite remote part of Ireland. They didn't pay to put us up, they didn't pay to fly us over, and everybody else that was in that heat had all done their heat in Belfast, in Northern Ireland and stuff. And I didn't, and I was like, my material, and again, everybody bar Roger O'Sullivan, who was in that heat, Vittorio Angeloni, William Thompson, Diona Doherty, they all had agents, they all just more experienced, and they all, knew what they were doing. And I had worn a shirt that I'd never done anything with TV, and I was wearing a shirt, and they were like, you can't wear that shirt, it's got a pattern on it, it's bleeding on screen. When we did our sound checks, so I had to wear this clothes I didn't plan on wearing, which, as we've mentioned, I planned what I was going to wear. I was confident about it. And then they said it was strobing, so I couldn't wear that. And then I had to do material that I knew was going to die on its arse. And it didn't completely. And all my love to Malwan Rizman and Catherine Bohart, who were the judges, who for two of my jokes that I knew were good jokes, but were about being horny and using a vibrator over lockdown. They were the only ones in the room who laughed. But the room was full of retired PSNI officers. So it was just not good. And it really felt like that was my shot. I was like, oh my God, this is my one shot. And I should never talk about this, because then people will go watch it. It wasn't as bad as it felt. But I remember I drove home that night. I was staying at my friend's parents', but I drove a while away, and I just cried my eyes out. I remember I've never left a gig and bawled my eyes out like that, because it felt so big. And this is your shot, and it felt like I'd screwed it up. You realize now, I remember when it came out, I was like, didn't want anyone to watch it, didn't want anyone to know. Everyone was like, great job. And I'm like, oh, people say they watched it, and they haven't watched it. I just get to now have the BBC One and the BBC Two credits, which are great. And I'm delighted for. I also have all the lessons I learned where I'll never let a TV producer tell me what jokes I have to tell, when I know that room and I know that audience and I know what will or won't work. And also I know what strobing is now, so I know what I can and can't wear on camera. So that was but it was, I don't think I've ever learnt more. It genuinely was it felt like at the time a real low point, but it was one of them where, one, no one's paying that much attention, because then agents and people were like, oh wow, she got the BBC. It helped create buzz.
Yeah. It
didn't actually matter that I'd felt I hadn't had a good gig. It did what it needed to do in terms of credits. And also I learned shit tons from it. Because it's easy in comedy to be quite wide-eyed when you get to a next level, when you end up somewhere and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But actually, you have to back yourself. You really do. And so, yeah, that was definitely one. High points, probably realizing not as many people watched it. Although my aunts did, and they learned a lot about me. Thankfully, my Irish aunts couldn't, because the BBC, you can't watch it in Ireland. And thank Jesus.
So how can anyone find out about you and where they can see you performing?
You can follow me online. I'm on Instagram at Kat Higgins Comedy, and TikTok at Kat Higgins Comedy, and Facebook, just Kat Higgins. I must put the comedy in there. I must remind people that's what it's for. But yeah, and I'll be doing a load of previews and stuff coming up to the Fringe for my show, which I haven't actually talked about barely at all. But the show is called In Memory of Me, and it's about me, would you believe? But it's about me growing up, and it's also about sort of families and how we remember people. There's a bit in there about loss and grief, but it's all very funny, I swear. But there's a lot of stories. If you are someone who was raised in a big Irish Catholic family, I think you'll hard relate. If you are someone you're a girl with brothers, you'll relate. If you're a girl with a dad who's annoying, you'll relate. If you've been an attention-seeking child your entire life, you'll relate. So there's a lot in it for everybody.
So I'll ask my final question then, of course. Kat, how would you sum up comedy in a nutshell?
I knew you were going to ask this question, and I was like, I think comedy it's a lot of things, but in one way, it's tension and release.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in life right now, like especially right now, but in life, you can have a lot of tension. And comedy is such a vehicle to be able to release it. And so I honestly think it's so important, whether it's like you and your mates having a laugh, like I'll never laugh as much. There's, I'm lucky enough to see all sorts of incredible comics. Me and my mates I went to school with from the age of 7, the most I'll ever laugh in my life is when we're around each other having a laugh. It's also, incredible writing, it's films, it's TV, it's loads of things, but it's tension and release. Yeah. And I think it's one of those things that it's essential because life is, tension, 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 tension. And the release can be, Celia on The Traitors doing that fart. Like, I'll never forget that. What's her name? Celia? Like, stuff like that. That's pure comedy. And like, that's unscripted. That's improv. That fart was pure improv.
You say she didn't prepare that weeks in advance?
I know. I bet. That woman is a top class actress. You're telling me she didn't plan it? But it is. That's exact. And it's also like your mate farting, going to a yoga class and the girl beside you farting and you like trying not to burst out laughing. It can be anything, but it's tension. It can be bowel tension and then release. And I honestly think it's so important these days because there is so much tension going on that like we need a release,
For sure. Kat, thank you so much for being my guest. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, Mark. Cheers.